Thanks for joining us, everybody. Another new episode of 10 Minutes of RGM. Today I'm being joined with Pavel, who will have a nice conversation with me around the RGM trends that he's seeing in his daily work and his past experiences. So Pavel, would you like to do a brief introduction of yourself before we kick off?
Hello, Oko. Hello, everybody. Thank you for the chance to share my experience and my knowledge. My name is Pavel. I'm currently leading revenue growth management in Europe for BIC. That is a non-food company, but before that I had an experience working in Bondiel. That is a food company also at European scale. And that is why I find this dialogue useful from the CPG perspective, covering both food and not food specific points in RGM capability.
It can be quite different, I think, between slow-moving consumer goods and fast-moving consumer goods, although the principles might stay the same. All right, Pavel, one of the first questions I would like to ask, over the next 12 months, which RGM trends will matter the most for your business, and where will you focus your team's efforts?
That's a great question, Oko, especially within the environment today where there is a lot of uncertainties that we face over and over again with the inflation and with everything happening worldwide. I can say that one of the main challenges that we're facing currently, and the majority of the companies in slow and fast-moving consumer goods, is the challenge of the volume. So today the market is changing, and after the decades of double-digit growth that we were profiting previously, we're no more there, and we are currently facing the stagnation of growth. That means that from the volume perspective, we need to find another lever of growth for the company, for the revenue, and this is complicated. Another challenge that is also common for more or less everybody is one of the consequences of COVID pandemic that we faced several years ago. So currently, with the significant growth of e-commerce, of distant purchasing based on the pandemic change of the consumer occasions, we're facing the situation where the price comparison is the reality. So for the consumer, it's quite simple, and like in seconds, you can achieve different prices for the same product or product alternatives in different channels. And price is not that much a differentiator, and you must be very precise and very accurate in your price increases and price movements, because consumer will be switching from one customer to another, from one channel to another, and the elasticities are very different. So the elasticity coefficient that we used to have 5-10 years ago is not anymore there. It's not static. It's changing between the channels, occasions, consumers. Even day by day, it can be different. And it's strongly polluted currently with the transparency in the prices. So that means that a part of volume that is challenging, a part of pricing that is transparent, the main level of growth for RGM today is mix. And this is the main change that we face. And this is the main lever where we do focus all our efforts today.
I think especially to offset the high volume growth we had in the past, that was double digits and a simple price increase, responding differently as how it used to do in the past. We see this quite a lot, right? Price elasticity studies from before COVID. Most people use the base now starting 2022, 23 as a data set, and more recent, and everything just changes year on year. Consumers are switching very fast, especially where the category allows them to. Okay, so mix is a clear focus for you. Interesting. Which RGM capability has become essential for your team, something that you were not prioritizing a couple of years ago?
In RGM, I would say that with the environment that is changing and with everything like that I just highlighted for price and mix specifically, promotional management and optimization is currently something that is quite well established across the industry and most of the companies. There are plenty of tools. We have quite a high level of maturity here in different companies because there are different vendors providing expensive, big solutions that are quite monstrous sometimes. There are some small players that are providing something really tailor-made, very fast to implement, and still delivering the value for the promotion management and optimization. So at this level, everything is quite well established for the moment. There is still always the opportunity for growth, but this one is well established. The commercial conditions or trade terms, depending on how in your company it is called, that is one of the another levers of RGM. There are some frameworks, but still for this specific capability, we're quite far from a high level of maturity. And this is something that will be changing over the next years. And this is where technology is not yet there and where it will be one of the drivers of the improvement. So I would say for these two, then what is important also, basically what is happening this year, I would say, like the last weeks and months, is the technology is more and more affordable. So they're getting cheaper. We have the AI agents that are available for the people, like for several dollars per month. You can have enormous capability helping you and improving your everyday efficiency. And this is something that is moving to commercial world as well. So there are tools that are getting cheaper. There are tools that are getting faster to implement, and this is the game changer for RGM. So it's not that much the specific lever, but the technology that is accelerating all of them. And again, trade promotion optimization is already quite well established, but it's getting cheaper than it was before with new solutions and new capabilities. And for all the rest, the technology is coming to accelerate and to make the difference. And this is the game changer.
Where do you see RGM is helping to solve internal misalignment between areas like sales, finance, and supply chain? And I think especially when you mention that mix is so important, mix cannot be driven by just one person. So you need a strong internal alignment across functions. How do you do that in the BIC?
For that, I would say RGM cannot be a separated function. RGM cannot work in silos and prepare the scenarios and evaluate the numbers. Basically, RGM, from my perspective, apart of being a mindset, RGM as a function is a very cross-functional discipline. It is an orchestrator of everything that is happening inside the company. And for example, for the IBP cycle, like for integrated business planning, on monthly basis, we do have demand planning reviews, portfolio reviews, and on them, RGM team is presenting their view, understanding on the past event performance, what is happening for mix, for price, for promotion, the view on the future, what is the projection based on the latest demand numbers, so understanding how to not just valorize the volume, what finance is doing, but how on top to that, highlight what will be the potential impact on mix based on our projection in the volumes. And when we sit all together regularly and transparently look at these numbers, at the direction, at the forecast, and discuss it, RGM becomes really something that connects the dots in the organization. And there is no place for misalignments if you orchestrate that properly.
Orchestrating role. Interesting. If you had to make one bold prediction about RGM 5 years from now, what would it be and why?
Let me ask you the question answering on that. Let's imagine 2 years ago, would you be able to predict where we would be today? I don't think 5 years is the horizon that we can discuss today, but let's say in 27, 28, for sure, there will be technologies driven by artificial intelligence everywhere in RGM, in all the levels, in all the companies, and the people will be just speaking to the system, speaking to the computer, asking for recommendations, scenarios, opportunities, and after that, based on this enormous transparency, taking the decisions. AI will not take decisions for the people because the responsibility is still on the experts, on the stakeholders in the company, but the number of opportunities that we will be able to evaluate and choose from will be increasing like thousands, millions times more than we have today. And this is the main change. This is where we will move.
I definitely echo that. And I already see a lot of that is currently available. And the speed at which this is accelerating is amazing. And especially the fact that the RGM insights are becoming available not only to the RGM people, but to everybody. And then that allows them to then make their own decision, right? You don't no longer spend all the time on taking data from there, putting it from here, making your own dashboard, building a report, and then crunching the numbers. And then 1 week later, you finally have a conclusion. So you prompt something and you get it. And it's incredible. I still personally find myself needing to adapt to that way, because when I was doing RGM analytics, you have like a step A to Z or a 7-step approach, for you. You look at the market performance, you understand which category segments are driving your growth, how is my brand performing, what are the pack sizes, and then you go very granular into the price pack architecture where you find on SKU level the opportunities. But actually, you don't need to do all those 7 steps. You can just prompt it to an agent that will come up with the recommendation based on all the analytics in once. And then you skip all that pre-work that we as humans feel that we need to do to understand and come up with an opportunity. And I think connecting that with the adoption, once people actually start to adopt and change their mindset, it will go super fast from there. Yeah. All right. So you have been working in CPG and business for a while. So what's one lesson that you have learned early on in your career that still shapes your RGM approach today?
I started in the business intelligence. So I was as analyst working with a lot of numbers, and I was doing some reports and preparing the dashboards for it was in Excel purely at that time for the stakeholders. And the lesson I learned is that there was the moment when I was reporting the number that as an analyst, I was junior, I did not understand what does it mean. And the people told me, you cannot have like 20 working hours per day. This is it was not exactly that, but kind of that. And I understood at that moment that behind the number, there is always the business reality, the person, there is somebody or something that is physically happening outside your working place. So for example, there is the sales representative who is doing his visits, aiming to come back home after that or something else. And you always need to think about the reality, the physical person or the physical event that is happening behind the cell in the spreadsheet. And only by understanding that and feeling that, this is sometimes called business acumen, but it's more than just these 2 words. Feeling that and understanding that, you will be looking at the numbers, at the insights absolutely differently. And this is the lesson that I learned. And this is something that I really inspire everybody to start thinking when you look at the numbers in the report.
To build on that, I would also say once we identify RGM opportunities, it's also not only just a number in a spreadsheet or a number on a PowerPoint slide. You need to think, what's the implication for my route to market? What's the implication for the retailer margin? What's the implication for our factory line? There are many, many things where we do a commercial analytics on finding a new RGM opportunity, but fully understanding the impact from, let's say, fabric factory all the way to the consumer and the impact everybody along the chain. Yeah, that's definitely something to ponder about. And I think everybody in the RGM space, or business space for that sense, we will keep learning every single year, because it never stops. These scenarios.
Absolutely.
Super insightful input, Pavel. Thanks. I have just a last question. Who would you like to see in our next episode?
I will not give you a name. I don't know, but we're talking a lot about fast and slow moving consumer goods. But I see from the industry perspective that service providers or the companies that are working in the industrial environment are also aiming to start building RGM as a capability. And this point of view that is very different from food and non-food can be very interesting for me personally and for others, I believe, as well, because this is another approach of RGM, but still the capability is quite the same and the levers will be common.
We'll scan our network to find somebody working in a non-food type of business. Thanks a lot, Pavel.
Thank you a lot, Oko. It's a pleasure.